Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's about 10:30 my time, Mountain Standard. I see quite a few people have already joined, and there's a number that are just on their way in. So we'll wait a few minutes for them to join us. Thanks very much for being punctual, everybody. I also have, as some of you have noticed, the poll set up. It's going to inform some of the work we're doing today. So if you get a chance, please complete that. I'll just give everybody a few minutes, starting to fill up. Thanks for your input on that. One more minute, and I think we'll get going. A lot of people have joined us already, so if you get a chance, please complete the breakout prep poll that we've got set up. Maybe 30 more seconds. I think it's a good time to get started. I again appreciate everybody making the time to make it out for our meeting. We have lots to cover today. I've sent out the agenda. If anybody has any questions, just let me know about those. I think first thing to cover off is like to go through our land acknowledgement. So I'm in Calgary, and I'll do this acknowledgement on behalf of Calgary. We recognize the original inhabitants of Calgary, including the people of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Xagsaksi, Nakota Nations, and Métis Nation, Region 3. We all enjoy the benefits of living in, a great part of Canada, and appreciate the hospitality we've been able to enjoy living where we do. Also like to mention some of the collaboration partners that we're currently working with. So we've formed a partnership with Alberta Eco Trust, and we're going to be helping them deliver some of their programs that are going to benefit folks anywhere in North America, but specifically there's going to be really significant opportunities for institutions in Alberta. We have two different pieces of the programs we're offering. The first is NBIX, Energy Neutral Building Information Exchange, where we're going to be sharing information, writing case studies, doing training that really will be open to anybody who's available to do that training. It's often going to be online, and case studies can really cover anything that's going to be of interest anywhere throughout our membership on sharing how we're actually managing our buildings. And what we're trying to do is encourage adoption of advanced building code standards. So there's many different building and codes enforced across the institutions and regions that we cover. And the faster we can adopt more aggressive versions, the more we'll be reducing emissions. And so we're going to provide lots of opportunities to learn about that. As well, there's going to be a second phase of that program where we're going to be supporting deep energy retrofits. and there will be opportunities to access funding as part of that programming, but also lots of training. And again, it's really core to it is information exchange. So where things are working, where things can be improved, and sharing how that works so that we can all benefit from information that's coming out. I think just to provide a quick overview, so many of you are familiar with this Sustainable Campus Collaborative. Many have been participating for the last couple of years where we've been operating. We meet quarterly in the fashion we're going to today to share learnings, to share where institutions or experts will present information about initiatives that they have going on that we think we can all learn from. We had hoped today to get the chance to learn a lot more details about University of Calgary's net zero engineering study and the next phase of their plans to achieve campus net zero. Unfortunately, that presentation was kind of has been bottled up a little bit. We're going to have to wait for a few more sessions, probably by the end of the year. We'll be able to present that when the information is more proved to be public. But we have adapted some of the information that has been gleaned out of that process. So it has been completed, and they're going through the governance processes of approving that plan, and lots of information to come. But through that process, we decided to do a process today where we'll answer some questions as you're doing in the poll that I've set up. And then we'll go into some breakout sessions for 15-20 minutes where I think we'll just discuss different aspects of that information and how it relates to your specific institution. So please complete that survey, and then we'll bring the information and the what has been discussed into the group as a whole. And looks like there's about 25 of us from across North America. So thanks everybody for coming. And we'll discuss what that looks like. I think it's a great opportunity to find out what's going on our campuses and to really create some relationships and that conversation. So yeah, please complete that survey when you get a chance. I see that most of you have done that. So that's kind of the process, and that's what we're set up to do. I'm helping many, and our organization is helping a number of institutions across North America engage with sustainability, and that means so many things to lots of folks. And if you are interested in learning more about that, please feel free to reach out. Be happy to meet and give you more information. But I think now it's time to turn it over to my colleague at Bow Valley College, Amy Spark. I'm hoping you can give just a quick update. So maybe you can introduce what you guys have been up to, the small group, and let us know how things have been going. Thanks, Amy.
Sure. Hi, everyone. And my apologies, I'll need to run in about 6 minutes. Sorry, I can only stay for the first 15. But yeah, I'm at Bow Valley College in Calgary. We haven't had a chance to chat or meet before. And for those that have heard about this update multiple times, I apologize. But I would say maybe almost 2 years ago now, a group of us, so that was 5 post-secondaries and 2 school boards, started to explore the idea of a collective power purchase agreement for renewable electricity for our campuses, for our buildings. And it's been a really great learning journey in terms of understanding how that might fit with our existing energy contracts, what the greenhouse gas reductions sort of capacity is of these types of projects, but also whether it's possible to collectively procure. So, excuse me, this idea came out of a discussion from, I think it's a consortium of school boards in Northern Alberta, of like 27 different school boards that have been collectively purchasing renewable electricity. And so we thought, oh, we could follow the same model. But what we found is just the electricity market has changed so much, and our institutions are at such different levels in terms of how much electricity we use. Doesn't make sense for us to buy that collectively, or to do a power purchase agreement collectively. That said, three of us, so that's Bow Valley College, MacEwan, and Norquest, are still kind of exploring this idea of signing individual power purchase agreements with developers so that we're getting 100% of our electricity from these renewable electricity projects. So we're still exploring that. We're in discussions with a developer. We've signed an NDA, so I can't give too much information, but if and when we publish anything on APC, Alberta Purchasing Connect, I'm happy to share that link with members of this group as sort of a general information. And so I can only sort of speak on behalf of Bow Valley College at this time because we would be signing a contract just between us and the developer. But MacEwan and Norquest and Bow Valley, we're still chatting and meeting to sort of understand what these would mean for individual institutions. So I hope that makes sense. And I'm always happy to have a conversation or an email exchange about virtual power purchase agreements, physical power purchase agreements, or if that's something you're exploring or you know a lot about, feel free to send me an email. I can put my email in the chat as well. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Amy, and thanks for that work. It is exciting to see renewable energy being engaged in that way. And I think that there's lots that we'll all be able to learn when that process comes to fruition. So thanks very much. Let me know if there are any questions about that. If you'd like to be connected, you can certainly do that in the future as well. So I think then I think I've already covered the next item on the agenda. So I am going to end the poll now. I think that pretty much everybody has had a chance to contribute to that, and I'll share the results. So the first question was, and I'm assuming that you can see that. I don't know exactly how this works. The first question was, does your campus have a campus net zero plan for 2050? And so 1 said yes, 7 out of 18 who participated said no, 9 of 18 are working on it, and another institution could use support. So appreciate that. There's a wide variety of progress on this and engagement with it. So that's exactly what we'd expect. And we're all working towards it. So that's good to hear. Does your institution have energy efficiency targets? So it's like a little bit of a subset of achieving a net zero campus. And it sounds like many do, 6 of 18, so a third of us do. 2 of our institutions that participated don't. 8 of 18 working on it. So many institutions are in that process of considering it. And that's exactly, why we're here, is to help us consider those and be able to help accelerate, so that if there's folks who are ahead and have gone through often, difficulties, can share those and we can all benefit from that. And we'd like to acknowledge those. There's a couple of folks who said they could use support, and there's lots of ways that we may be able to help you with that. So one of the engagements we have, and through the Alberta Eco Trust process, we'll be able to help engage, but also there's a nonprofit that we work with, the Climate Challenge Network, that benchmarks performance between institutions and very specifically between like buildings. So we all know our campuses are very diverse. So happy to talk about that with folks who are interested as well, where you can, if you have buildings that are offices or more dedicated purposes, we can compare like buildings. Third question, does your campus use sustainability reporting to benchmark and improve? So there's a lot of different types of standards of sustainability reporting that can be really valuable, because they can open up opportunities to benchmark, see how other institutions are doing, as well as to see how your processes and policies can be really leveraged to improve sustainability performance effectively. So 3 of 17 have no reporting at this point. 7 of 17 are using the most broad standard, probably well over 1,000 institutions across North America using the ASHE stars. And it's a very in-depth sustainability reporting that doesn't just look at energy efficiency or operations, but also academic side with curriculum and research, engagement, and more strategic levels. So whether you're integrating sustainability into strategic plans, whether it's academic or research or campus master plans. And another piece of data that can often be really valuable is GHG inventory. And we're providing that about 35% of our respondees are doing that. And it's a really valuable piece of information. I'd be happy to talk about how that works, what it looks like. There's a lot of tools out there, and we can provide direct support to help you do a GHG inventory. Another set of information may not be exactly a report, but UN SDGs are very commonly used to understand where you're performing on sustainability. And those are often reflected through other reporting and on sustainability sites at institutions. And another piece, another report that's becoming more popular, I think it's more, it's very specific in how it looks, Times Higher Education Rankings. The particular larger institutions are often engaging with this reporting. Fourth question was, what tools are used? So this would relate to the institutions that are actually using tool and creating a GHG inventory. So many number of institutions on the call aren't currently tracking GHG emissions. I'd be happy to, again, talk to you folks about what that looks like. What would you want to do, and what it would take to create a GHG emission, which with the rise in carbon tax, so right now it's $65 a ton, it's rising by $15 a year in Canada until it'll reach $170 a ton by 2030. The cost of that can be quite significant. So tracking your GHG emissions and knowing where you stand relative to that is also, in addition to the engagement of your students and staff and academics. One of the tools that's really popular is the University of New Hampshire's SciMap tool. So it looks like at least one person is using that, one institution is using that. BMO Radical Climate Smart is being used. I know there are lots of other tools out there. Ecometrica, I know, is used by some of our institutions, and you may be contacted at some point by some of these other systems, all of which can be really valuable tools in tracking GHG emissions. And I see that there's lots of folks who could use support. Be happy to meet as a group or meet with you individually, because again, it's a really important tool for costs as well as for meeting our fiduciary responsibilities to the communities that we serve to reduce emissions. Question number 5, and we're getting near the end here. Does your campus have interim emissions targets? So it looks like 47%, or almost half of our institutions do. 5 of 17 don't, and a number could use support. And again, this kind of tracks to our responsibilities to our communities, as well as our provincial and federal governments. They all have targets, and we, as institutions that are serving communities, it's great if we can align with those targets of the governments and people that we serve. So happy to have conversations about that, and that's a really important part of in our breakout session, something we can talk about. So look forward to that discussion. Question 6, how ready is your institution to implement its institutional climate action plan? So this is a relatively advanced kind of piece. Looks like 3 of 17 institutions have kind of aspirational implementation kind of readiness. So that's great. A lot of folks, 3 of 17, 18% are doing on the side of desk, and this is often the case as well. And it's great for us to get together and talk about ways to manage that. It sometimes can be a bit overwhelming so that we can be effective. A number of institutions, 3 of 17 again, have dedicated staff and identified a path to net zero. So that's great, and we'll be able to learn from you. And then a number of institutions are just early in this journey, and many of us are. So I look forward to that discussion and how we can pitch in to help you. And our final question, where would you like your institution to focus its efforts to achieve net zero 2050? So the first point is improve building design guidelines. So that fits really well into our NBICS. Often, an institution will mandate that you're going to achieve some level of green building standard, and there's a number of different standards out there. I was talking to one institution that wasn't observing any guidelines. They just built to the best standard they could without actually specifically considering guidelines. And so they asked their building designer, the architect, and their construction group, well, what would it take if we decided to actually build to a standard? And we were expecting 10, 20% maybe premium. And they came back and said, well, you're actually already building to a very high standard. It might be a 1 to 5% cost, and maybe none at all. You know, that's just our estimate. So I think that's often going to be the case. We want to build energy efficient buildings. There's lots of different benefits. There's cost benefits, but there's also real benefits just having a good environment for employees where it's not drafty or all those types of things. So that may be the case. And so it really makes sense to align with that. A number of institutions, again, 47%, 8 of 17, are considering sustainability whenever they're doing asset renewal. So that's really valuable. You know, replacing a natural gas boiler with another, maybe a high efficient natural gas boiler might not be the perfect way to set, because of the life of those types of assets, to set you up for a net zero by 2050. So considering asset renewal and that process and trying to prepare for that, again, that's different institutions are at different levels of that, but the more you can do that, the better set you'll be. And we see that 7 of 17 institutions are considering large project implementation. So I know there's a number of campuses who have really big ambitions. The University of Calgary is one of them, and they've gone through this big engineering study. A number of other institutions are doing similar things to prepare for larger, more systematic projects, and that's really valuable. You need to really set yourself up for long-term success by thinking long-term, and the better you can do that, the more likely we are to achieve our goals. And finally, deep energy retrofits, more ambitious, and requires a lot of planning and being prepared. And in particular, I think the financing of all these approaches is really important. It's great to see that most institutions are considering 71% deep energy retrofits. So those questions and the answers to those, I think, set us up well. I'm going to share a quick presentation so that we can kind of go through these questions a little bit and prepare you to go into the breakout sessions. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Just a few slides, and hopefully you can see that now. So covering off kind of those questions, but also giving you some broader goals and how to approach the breakout sessions. The basic question we're hoping that you get a chance to discuss is, how is your campus advancing institutional climate goals? And often, how are you going to plan to achieve campus net zero 2050 goals? Focus of this kind of conversation can be around energy supply. So how are you getting your electricity? How clean is that electricity? As we heard from Amy, there's a number of institutions in Alberta that are trying to actually procure renewable energy to improve their performance in that regard, as well as maybe flatten costs. You buy often a longer period, and reduce fossil fuel. Depends where you are. Many institutions, if they're in BC or Manitoba or other parts of Canada, they might have very clean grids, might not be as much of a priority. Other than energy supply, you can also want to think about demand reduction, which could also be considered as part of energy efficiency. So when you're doing new construction, existing buildings, how are you planning to reduce that demand? You know, whether it's to burn some kind of fuel to heat and cool your building, or even to use electricity to clean or to heat and cool your buildings. Having efficient buildings can really make a big difference on that. And then other scope 3 type emissions, is your institution actually focused on those as well? Or are you primarily focused on scope 1 and 2 electricity sources and how you're heating and cooling your buildings on site. So many institutions are already doing campus climate action planning. We took a look at the U15 comparators in Canada, the 15 research intensive universities, and all 15 have climate plans. They may have different goals, so it kind of maps out the dates. Most of them are aiming by 2050. A few are trying to do it earlier, either 2035 or 2040, and some are just some are actually taking an even more ambitious goal of trying to get to carbon neutral, and some haven't set date yet and are probably working on that. So the research intensive universities, just to give you an idea, a number of them have been attending and have presented. UVA, UBC on the left there of your screen, those institutions are quite active, and we'd be happy to engage with some of those others that haven't been as active in our group. So in the breakout, these are kind of some of the poll questions, some of the issues I'd like to address, just as we did in the poll questions. Does your institution have a climate plan? Is your institution using energy targets? Do you have interim targets? And do they address all areas of emissions? Are they focused on scope 1 and 2? And if you're not familiar with that use of words, that's okay. What accountability do you have within those targets? Is it something that your executive and facilities or some other group within your organization is actually accountable for achieving those, particularly the interim and then the long-term ones? And besides dollars, which are always so critical, and we'll always have lots of discussion about that, what are the other things that would really help your institution engage with this? So again, around the breakout questions, and I'm going to kind of randomly assign folks to the breakouts, I think, so we get kind of even on numbers. If you were to find yourself with a windfall of dollars, and I'll leave this up so you can take a look at it, what do you have? What projects do you have? What approaches do you have that are really shovel ready and can very quickly start to be acted on? And that's often really valuable to be able to do. If a grant opportunity comes up or some kind of funding comes up, if you have a number of projects that you know are higher in your priorities and that could be really fueled with a bit of money, it can be valuable to be set up that way. So, and what is targeted within those strategies? Is it the energy management, design standards, climate action, scope 3 type issues that would be priorities, but maybe are unlikely to be as ready? Second question that'll be assigned to one of the breakout groups: what's an area of focus in which you've achieved success? So we'd like to learn from each other. What are good things going on around? And there's potential for us to raise case studies about those. So please keep that in mind. If you have exciting things going on in campus that you think other campuses may benefit from learning about, and I'm sure that there's projects on every campus where that's the case, we'd love to know about it. So if you can discuss that there. Third breakout group: where would you like to increase success or readiness? So are there areas where you would like to have more going on, but maybe don't know where to start, and maybe you do. We'd like to know more about that, because that can help us in our programming, help us in our conversations with Alberta EcoTrust and with each other to try to find ways to seed that and make that happen. And the fourth breakout: are you concerned about the time frame and final target? And what are your concerns? What are the opportunities or threats that make it an issue that, again, could be valuable for us to talk about and understand better? So those are the breakouts. And now I'm going to see if I can get us into those breakouts. And let me know if you have any questions before I send you off. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. And
ideally be. Oh, now you're recording us, Donald.
I don't know how that works. I guess wherever I go, it starts to record. Sorry.
So anyway, so any new buildings on the campus, I ideologically, I guess, would like to go straight for net zero on them, or at least as close as possible to it. So any new residences, especially if they're smaller buildings, I want to look at solar, I want to look at geothermal and all those things, because when you build new, that's really the time to look at that. Who's next?
Joseph, what would you do with, $15 million showing up tomorrow?
Yeah, we've got some big plans here at the University of Winnipeg, largely connected to the tearing down of Sparling, which is a decommissioned building, and then the creation of a student success center. But tied to that in the basement is the vision of redesigning our power plant and moving towards earth energy systems. So the director of facilities, Kyle McDonald, has already commissioned a feasibility study. And so we have the plans in place. We know what it's going to look like to drill boreholes all across the campus property and then connect that into a new power plant in the basement of the new student success center. And that's the big ticket item that's going to get us, close to net zero for 2050. We've been a bit of a leader with projects like this in the past. I mean, we've got one of Canada's first urban biomass heating systems, and Manitoba's largest urban solar panel system, which together, when they're both functioning, help us meet 5% of our campus energy needs. But that's obviously a drop in the bucket compared to something like a large scale geothermal project. So that's the big ticket item for us. So yeah, let me know if you've got anyone with $15 million kicking around, because our government certainly doesn't have it, and our international students are going to be less in numbers. So yeah,
We're all getting hit by that, and it changed their finances quite a bit. So the long term, I mean, that's interesting with the geothermal. I know that's something that University of Calgary is actually, that's what their engineering study is pushing them towards as well. And it's not cheap to do that. $15 million would kind of get you going a little bit, but it's going to be much more than that. Is there a bit of a plan that way to have ideas about how you're going to finance? And I assume that the geothermal is intended to take on most of that heating and cooling then across campus. Is that the idea? Okay.
Yeah, it'll be district, and so there'll be retrofits that are tied to different buildings. I mean, and a way to like distribute heat. I'm not the expert on that by any means. In terms of putting the money together, we've in the past relied on donors on some big names, but I think all those entities often look at government investment as well. So I think the government change here in Manitoba might help us a bit in that regard, although they're cash strapped as well. So yeah, the plans are in place, and there's a team of people in the president's office that works on government and community relations. So all the power to them to go out and bring us the cash. But
yeah, and hopefully to find a breakthrough on that. Yeah, that's a tough piece, but it's great you have kind of that detailed a plan. Brandon, have you already kind of spoken to?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I would go the opposite way, because we're like 125 sites. We don't have I don't want to say luxury, or maybe the blessing and the curse of having one kind of central area to work on. I would probably focus on the thing that I'm most excited about right now, which is like portables. So I have 830 odd portable classrooms, and they all have a mid or high efficiency furnace. They burn a lot of gas because it's wood frame residential style construction for them. And also we do tend to get windfalls sometimes, generally in July and August, when other business units haven't spent all their money and they want to spend it all by August. We get money bombs. And so I always try and have a stack of things that I can do that are modular and scale well. So if it's $400,000 or $20,000 or $10 million, I got something. So I'm trying to make the portables themselves net zero plus, let's call it, because I'll put a heat pump on the roof and fill up the rest of the space with solar panels and backfeed the rest of the building. And it's about $20,000 per portable to make it stand alone like that, which isn't a terrible amount of money, but when you multiply it by 800, it becomes a pretty big snowball. So that would be kind of my plan. My struggle is our end user, like I can make the building more efficient, but we have operable windows in all our classrooms. So like ceiling insulation, the easy low hanging stuff kind of goes right out the window when somebody decides they want fresh air at -15. So I'd more focus on the utility side of, can we self-generate as much power as possible and reduce the amount of gas we burn? Those are kind of my motivators. And I don't have any directive for net zero anything, or even monitoring. That's all kind of my own fun project stuff. But that would be where I would take a money bomb and apply it to as many as possible. And then through the portables, we could start to approach net zero in the base building with the electricity generation.
Nice. No, and that could make, and I can imagine those buildings are often the most inefficient. I don't know.
Correct.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so improving them can make a lot of sense. And 20 grand doesn't sound too bad. Are you you're currently piloting? Is that
Yeah.
that's up and functioning?
All the equipment's been purchased, and then teacher convention, I think, is in a week, maybe 2. And that's when the install is going to take place, because they're out of the building for 3-ish days. So gonna do one. Sorry, we're gonna do 2 portables out of the 8 initially, get all the permits signed off, make sure the inspectors get that happy, warm, fuzzy feelings, and then do the same thing 6 more times. And then compare it, hopefully over 12 months, to the other half of the building that doesn't have any of these additions.
Nice. No, that's exciting. And all these approaches we have are different, and they have different scales and ambition, but they're all really valuable. I know.
Not looking for perfect, just trying to get better.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where you have to start, and where we can, try to jump on those more systematic approaches. But yeah, it's not always easy.
And Hassan has not yet gone.
Oh, okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So for Calgary Board of Education, I think there's if we do have a windfall, I mean, which also we don't have. So technically we are at the mercy of the grants as well. So just recently we applied for that low carbon economy challenge. We are working through it. So at this time, the most of the money we are applying for grants, we are using for solar installs. So we are doing solar installs in 31 schools. At this point in time, 17 of them are in place. So we already have 17 schools where we have solar installs. And we are going to be doing 14 in the coming year. So that's kind of like the next bit of things we are going to be doing. At the same time, as soon as I've joined as an energy manager, we did a prioritization exercise. So what we did was, out of the 264 sites we have, we kind of like broken them down into 3 categories, depending on how their energy utilization intensity looks like. The GHG emissions, kind of like how do they contribute to the overall GHG inventory for Calgary Board of Education, and then the age of the building. We came up with 99 sites like that. So the way we are going to do, so if we have a windfall like that, money that suddenly comes in, we are going to use it at some low cost, no cost kind of like retrofits. So that could be lighting retrofits that we are currently doing for Calgary Board of Education, replacing all of our halides to LEDs, like the older ones that we have. And then if we have more money, we are right now in the process of doing kind of like our strategy piece for district and energy systems. So kind of like for our schools, look at opportunities if we can do district energy systems, and also some innovative ways of tackling the problem as well. So we are going to be investing some money in CCS, so carbon capture and sequestration. So we are going to be doing some things on that. So in a nutshell, so if we have some money, so we'll do some innovative stuff, and then the regular retrofits where we can spend money in lighting retrofit stuff. Yeah. And apart from the solar that I already spoke about. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, what's interesting about schools from a geothermal perspective, you guys tend to have some space around buildings. So it certainly is possible. I don't know how cost effective it is exactly, but I think that that technology is improving as well. So some interesting things going on. So lots of solar generation plants.
Yes, and it's giving us good return as well. So at this point in time, we are getting good returns from our solar, right? Replacing at least a portion of our electricity that we are going to be using and replacing them with solar. Yeah, that has been a good return for us. But we are looking for other options. So just like we say, district energy systems, carbon capture and sequestration. So we'll ponder some more just to see if there's a return, like a better bang for buck in those areas.
And I find that like carbon capture and storage, that's I've often heard that's relatively expensive. I don't know how far down that that you guys have looked. Or is it because there's a funding source, or
Yes, as part of the low carbon economy challenge, yes, those are some things they are supporting through that. But at the same time, we'll do a pilot. We're not doing a broad stroke over there like that. We'll be doing all of them. So we are going to take one of our campuses and just use it as a pilot and see what returns we get from that. And then if it works out, then we'll implement across, kind of like just like we did for solar. We're now moving to 31 schools. That's the idea, that we'll do a pilot and then move from there.
Excellent. No, that makes sense. So when you install solar, does that tend to provide most of the electricity of that building, or it just depends maybe what that capacity at the building is, or?
Depending on the install, like the size of the install. So if we have bigger units, yes, they tend to do at least 30 to 40% of the electricity tend to get from there. But as you can see from the solar guide, for per kilowatt, it's basically going to give about 1,200 kilowatt hour. That's kind of like the range of electricity generation that you can have from that. So that's not a great amount, because most of our schools are campus and they are running almost 9 to 10 months in a year. So that's not going to be giving a whole lot, but does tend to, at least in the summer months, yeah, it does tend to add up. And we do see that from the tracking that we are doing, at least about for those larger units, like say if they're 100 kilowatt or 150 kilowatt, they are generating almost 30% of the campus electricity. Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions you guys have for each other? I think we have maybe 5-10 more minutes at the most.
I don't think we have assigned, I know we have spoken, but we were supposed to assign a speaker. So Brennan, I believe you will take the lead.
Love to have a chat. Donald's been victim to that multiple times, unfortunately. But, there's few subjects that I get very excited about. Energy happens to be one of them, and nobody at home cares. So
right.
You guys have to listen, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we're talking to the right group. I think all of us get pretty interested in this. And I mean, it is, each of the institutions we're talking to just in this group, we're taking, I'm sure there's things that are core to it. The light retrofits is has been such a big thing, and different levels of that. But there's a bit of solar, but then it's quite diverse, and it'd be very, very valuable to hear. So if the engineering study has been done on the geothermal for University of Winnipeg, is that something that might be available to share some pieces of that? That could be really interesting.
Yeah, I can forward you everything we have on that just via email if you want to share with the group. Yeah, I could share the feasibility study and probably even the drawings for the schematics and stuff for the whole project. And yeah, I'm sure Kyle's happy with that, so no problem.
Yeah, it's mapped out in that much detail, so that's really interesting.
I mean, we did an initial preliminary study, and then I think we paid another big sum of money to the same consulting firm for that. So yeah,
excellent.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions for each other, or things you wanted to explore a bit?
No, I just want to say I do live in fear of like ground source heat pumps, like absolutely destroying air source heat pumps in 10 to 15 years, because if you can get reliable 5 to 10 degree water, it's way more efficient, it's way more dependable. And you kind of remove that electricity, not a lot of the electricity, but some of the electricity component, and then you don't necessarily need the backup heat that we seem to be victim to in Alberta. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll throw out a lot of heat pumps in 10 years and start drilling more holes, because we seem to be good at drilling holes.
The cost for a ground source, though, that's a big issue, especially for retrofits, right? For new buildings, it probably
makes a lot of sense if the diggers are there.
Yeah, for retrofits, which is actually funny. I'm looking for my home right now here in Lethbridge.
It's like pulling teeth in Alberta.
Oh God, I'm looking for. I know geothermal is not going to work at my home just due to tough to get access to the backyard where they drill the holes and all this is going to be very expensive. But just trying to get a company to give me a quote on air source, nobody gets back to me. I got one company out of the hat in the end, giving me an answer, a Medicine Hat, and that is it. All the rest, established companies have been around Lethbridge for 20 plus years. Just don't get back to me.
No. And they're charging double. So like I've bought a few heat pumps. They're generally $7,000 to $9,000.
Yeah.
And the lowest price I saw for my house was 21. And I don't begrudge anybody making a buck, but it's going to be one guy for at most a day.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay $8,000 for him to show up.
That is robbery.
It's highway robbery, isn't it? And it's unfortunate because I think that's tainted the whole approach to it, and it should be possible. And I agree that the ground source may take out the air source heat pumps, but all that technology I think is on a real improvement curve. So it's it's going to become very financially viable. If it's not now, it's on the edge. And within a few years, it'll be very much so. Particularly at that kind of residential level, I think institutional, it's closer maybe. Interesting. Yeah, and I wonder what that is. It is partly about the industry, just being able to, I guess, charge more, or if they're trying to make it not happen. And I think that's an interesting issue for NBICS. We're engaging lots of manufacturers and builders and actually met with HRAI organization and pushing them to do better on that and helping them. Maybe there's influences we can provide, because it's such a common issue, and it's bad.
And the other hiccup I've run into on that is all of the plumbing companies in Calgary have a brand that they will install and no other brand.
Yeah.
So if you do have something you want and there isn't a kind of preferred vendor for it.
Yeah, and like the concept of cold climate air source heat pumps and all that just hasn't come down to that level yet.
Yeah.
No, exactly the same problems here.
Yeah, it's really common.
I think we need to create our own company and go for the residential market. I think we'll be doing very well.
Well, what's your experience on that in Manitoba, Joseph? Do you think that it might be a little bit different there? Or is it similarly maybe difficult?
In terms of what, sorry?
Sourcing ground source or air source heat pumps, working with HVAC companies. It's hard to find, particularly in the residential level, and that's kind of specific, but to find folks who are willing to deal with the technology and pricing it not kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, my sense is the trend is towards more availability. We're even seeing, I'm seeing like consumer level commercials now for heat pumps, even here in Manitoba.
Good.
And there are quite a few firms that are involved with it, on the larger scale. But it is a bit of a risk, right? Like when our solar panels are only operating at half capacity right now because the big converter that is up on the roof, they don't make it anymore, and we can't find anyone to service it, and there's a big insurance claim, and so there's obviously risk with being an early adopter to things like that, but I've got friends in the residential house building world, and you hear stories about putting in geothermal and then owners deciding to pull it out after because so I've even heard stories like that, but
not good. Yeah, that's disappointing. I think I'm going to leave. Do you think that maybe I'll go check, but we've been in discussion for some time. Is there anything else that I wanted to talk about? Or I think I'll bring everybody back, so I'll do that shortly.
Hey, Donald, sorry, when the warning came up, I pressed the wrong button and that punted me out to here, so you're stuck with
Oh,
me.
that's okay. Yes, I know. I find it quite confusing, the different buttons to push, so I can completely commiserate. And sometimes I've pushed the wrong button and I send everybody home, and it's kind of abrupt, so I'm happy I haven't done that. Welcome back, everyone. We'll just let everybody file back into our group. Hope you had a chance for a good discussion. Appreciate that. I think we're all back in the room now. Thanks, everybody. Hope you had a good discussion. And what we'll do now is we'll just kind of go around the room, and hopefully you had a chance to, pick someone to do speaking on behalf of your group. But I'm sure that whoever can pitch in will be valuable to hear from you. So yeah, I think we can start with Brennan. Would you like to tell us kind of just an
Absolutely.
overview from your perspective? That'd be great.
Yeah, it was a good group. We had 2 school boards, 2 kind of university members. And we talked about the most fun question of what would you do with a money bomb or a big dump of money and how would you spend it? The university groups had kind of some older buildings they want to deeply retrofit, looking at updating the kind of HVAC systems as well as the power usage, or looking at a district heating, sinking some holes in the ground to do some geothermal. And the school boards kind of had more of a piecemeal operation where, we have these things that we are working towards and we have too many buildings spread all over. So you don't necessarily get the economies of scale you will. So I wanted to do a bunch of solar panels, heat pumps, and my partner over on the other side wanted to do a bunch of LED solar panel kind of retrofits. And it's just interesting to see the different approaches people take based on the size of their campus or layout. I shouldn't even say size. Size doesn't matter as much, but like if you have very concentrated stuff, it's easy to do a district heating or a central heating plant upgrade. But if you have too many sites spread all over, then you look at little piecemeal things.
Excellent, thanks. Yeah, and I think it also affects things if you've done a systematic study, if you know kind of from an engineering perspective, financial perspective, what specifically is going to make the most sense. And often, you have to kind of take opportunities as they come, but that'll affect how things are approached as well. Thanks. Valuable feedback there. Who else? Who's our next person who'd like to kind of give a summary of what happened in your group?
Hi, so I'll go forward. Our group, we initially had the question, about timelines and getting to 2050. So we had a mix of public school boards, colleges from different provinces, and then the University of Calgary here. So one of the things was for a lot of the members, they don't have the basic information in terms of their energy consumption. So in terms of that, developing that planning process, they're not, they're tracking their emissions, they've got the campus level information, but on a building by building basis, it's not there yet. So those are key steps that they're still looking at. When it comes to opportunities that they've been looking at overall, oftentimes it's, we talk about the funding, or just even the funding programs don't seem to match up with what the need is and the demand is. Looking at institutions in other provinces where they have publicly funded utilities, those often, even there, they're not seeing that opportunity. They're seeing primarily an opportunity for energy efficiency, which is good, but it won't get you to that 2050 goal, but not necessarily the fuel switching or, the heat pumps, the geo exchange that we're starting to recognize is going to be that big impact. get off there. So right now they're either seeing not the funding, or there's disincentives just based on electricity rates and the way the system is set up. So there are barriers in that way. And then lastly, obviously the consistent funding. So even where we have institutions with a lot of similar buildings, you could do asset renewal. We're seeing a lot of asset renewal that's just being done on a reactive basis. So basically, what's the biggest thing on fire? Where can we that's where the funding will go, rather than the planning side, where we either have some planning studies and they're minimal, so they're higher risk to apply for grants. So you got to be more conservative about it, or you're not certain about the payback, and so with those conservative numbers, even the internal payback may not be enough to move that project forward. So that limited information on the front end, it can hinder that opportunity when it comes to that windfall to make some major advances on that plan.
Excellent. Thanks. No, it's a great overview and some interesting points. And I think there's hopefully ways that we can work together to start to lobby or interact with our provincial governments and utilities to help them help us, because if we can get that kind of help, and it'll benefit the whole community. Recently had a meeting with all the post-secondaries in Manitoba, talk specifically about their environment and how things are working. And with the new government that might be open, that's obviously not flush with cash. None of us are, and none of our governments are, but can be really effective sort of help them pinpoint those things. So really appreciate those, some excellent points. Our next presenter, we should have a couple more. You can just chime in, that would be great.
Sure, David or Donald, I'll go now.
Sure.
We had the question, where would you like to increase success or readiness? And we had all post-secondaries, but everybody was on a kind of a different stage of sustainability planning and stuff. We had USask who's got a plan and everything in place, and so they know what they're doing and have targets and are moving towards those for net zero. And then we had universities that had support from leadership, but not a plan yet. They're moving towards. And then we had a pretty high-ranking leadership person on our panel who is on side and moving forward with strategic there. And then a few of us who are just kind of in the operations thing and trying to figure out how to move things up. So it was a really diverse level of, I guess, maturity and sustainability programs. And so you'd think that we all were looking for kind of different things to increase our readiness and success. But I mean, building on what they just said before, like it's that trying to figure out how to get support all the way above you so you could do the projects you like. And that was kind of increasing success or readiness is identifying those areas that that leadership, no matter if they're on side about sustainability or they're looking at financials or something else or risk, is identifying those priorities, and so that you have a project that meets those priorities to get them on side. I didn't ask, or I did ask, because the PIVC protocol for climate adaptation, everybody seems to be looking at net zero goals, right? And the energy efficiency stuff. And what I'm trying to do here is trying to kind of implement that energy efficiency with building vulnerability things in place. And so that you're doing one upgrade instead of two, right? Integrating those things. But that's all, and then you can put it all in the same budget, and identifying those risks, those high risk things through your building, through your risk assessment. I think it was David who mentioned that when they identified, that they had one water line coming in, and that was high risk, and no matter what situation, that got attention. Not that it was a climate issue, but it was a vulnerable piece of equipment issue or infrastructure issue that got attention. So increasing that success and readiness is, for if funding comes up, that you have the data that you need, you have the understanding of what people need to see. from a leadership perspective, or because I'm in Alberta, like we provincial support, right, Donald? We know. And Don, you were here before I was, right? I'm working on sustainability at MRU, you know, the barriers here. So yeah, trying to figure out those other ways of what people are looking at is how we can increase our success and readiness for moving forward.
Excellent.
Did I miss anything, team?
Excellent. No, again, really valuable. And I think that is such an important thing. Many people are on board with sustainability, but not everybody. And you might be in the bad, unlucky position where your board or your executive, there isn't someone there to champion it. But almost regardless, it helps them. It helps everyone if you can kind of come at it from a number of different directions. And I'm sure we're all kind of finding those and skilled at those. But no question, if you can get two things done at one time that, hit different folks' responsibilities and things are important to them, it can become a win-win that gets easier. So yeah, knowing your stakeholders, knowing what their appetite is so valuable. And we are all at different levels. Although what I find is even institutions who may not think they're as advanced, they may have things in the background going on that can be really valuable and that other institutions can learn from. So we all can benefit from this conversation. So thanks. I really appreciate that. Obviously a good discussion. And our final group, and I don't know who that might be. Hopefully you know who you are. Could you let us know your conversation?
That's us. I see Eric's camera on. Eric, do you want to talk or do you want me to summarize our discussion?
You go ahead.
All right, I'll do my best. You guys jump in if I haven't captured something. So our question was, what is an area of focus in which you've achieved success? So I would say McEwen answered that question very well, and then we all devolved into what are our challenges and what work do we still need to do. So Bonnie did a really good job of talking about what standards McEwen is aligning themselves to and what kind of is their planned work. And Stephanie talked about how their new buildings are built really well and how do we solve the problem of old buildings. And us as a K-12 institutions really has a big problem in that regard. And then we just kind of all brainstormed what are really good resources and where do you start, how do you proceed forward, what funding is out there. That's why I added the Sustainable Schools link in the chat, because they have some really good information and white papers on best practices. What else? And we were a collection of Alberta and Manitoba University College K-12 institutions. So we represented the gamut of our group. And all on different points of our planning and implementation journeys. And everybody has different funding opportunities and sources as well. Did I miss anything, team?
No.
And I think Stephanie also posted a link to a conference that's coming up in Alberta.
Yes, there's a couple kind of opportunities for conferences. The CCAN conference, which would apply to many of our institutions here, is coming up in Alberta in April. So yeah, check that out. NBICS is going to be launching in Alberta, or actually in Southern Alberta, in the next February 27th, I think. So that might be 28th, thanks. Could be of interest to some institutions. There are lots of other things going on. A retrofit, is it our energy efficiency? Alberta is having a conference I think, or actually, it's not in Alberta, is it the one in Vancouver? So, yeah, I'll post those maybe in the on our website, so you can check that out where they're, and let me know if there's ones that you'd like me to make broadcast to everybody, to make everybody aware, because those can be great events to network and find new information as well. I think that we're kind of coming to time. I hope that this was really interesting for everybody. I really appreciate the chance to learn from you. I've recorded, and I don't know exactly how the recordings of the breakouts work, if they only go to mine, but I'll provide a summary, hopefully, of what went on in each of the breakouts. I think I'm gonna be able to provide some information about that. So I appreciate everybody coming again, and if you have questions, if you'd like to reach out, if there's issues that kind of have been brought up that you'd like to have more information about, whether it's about reporting or GHG inventories, be happy to help folks who'd like to make progress on those, because there's lots of resources out there. But really appreciate the conversation. I think really good opportunity to network and talk about our issues. So thanks for participating in that. Appreciate it. Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.